Hello, welcome to the Crafty Maven Getaway podcast. This is Scrappy Chats with your host, Hannah.
And I'm Megan. Welcome to all you crafty mavens, and thank you for joining us.
Today, we have episode 8. I believe we're on 8.
I think so.
And today, we are going to be talking about managing and balancing work life or like real life.
Yes,
and
real life.
And scrapbooking. So is that a problem for you, Megan?
Yes. Just a resounding yes. It is so hard. Well, and especially in the last couple of years since life has kind of, completely changed. So it's a lot harder to fit it in because I have little kids again.
That must be so crazy, Daisy.
It
It's
is.
hard for me, like when I've thought about parents or people who become parents even later, like around our age. And for the record, because I don't mind saying my age, I'm 41. I'm going to be 42 this year, and you're going to be
Me
42
too.
this year.
Yep. In
So
like a
it's like,
month.
oh yeah. Oh, I knew this year is just flying by.
It's just flying by.
But like when I think, because I have quite a few friends that they're just starting to have kids or they have toddlers, and I'm like, and even our really close friends, their youngest, it just started kindergarten this year, Evie. And I mean, I loved that age, but I can't imagine going back to it only because it's really nice when they start getting older because they can do things like she's gonna be learning how to drive this year.
Yep. That's crazy.
Right? I mean, and your kids are the two older ones are out of school.
Yeah, they're adults. Yeah,
That's
Rachel
trippy.
is 18. She'll be 19 this year, and Jonas is 20, turning 21. So it's like, holy cow. And then to go from that, and like my partner's oldest is 15 and the youngest is 5.5. They'll be 6 this year going into kindergarten. And the youngest two are twins, and so they're kind of a handful, but I mean a good handful, right? Like it's fun. It's just crazy and so different than it was a couple of years ago, where I could just scrapbook all day and my kids could totally take care of themselves.
Yeah, like my kids will come in and be like, "Hey mom, what are you doing? Let me see." Or me and Kaden, we've been talking about because we had an issue with some of the watercolors that we were doing. And so she's like Googling and looking stuff up because she's super artsy, and she's like, "I think we can do it this way. We can make them better." And
well, and that's super fun that she like wants to be involved and like helpful. Like when you were telling me that yesterday that you guys were trying to figure it out, I was like, oh, that's like so fun because that's like a bonding time for you guys. That's
it is.
really awesome.
I think the hard part is she's 15. So
True.
like,
Yes.
her ability to stay on task is like I keep reminding her because she wants to add stuff to our store, and I told her, so actually she wanted her own store originally, and because she's 15 she can't do it all on her own. So I was like, well, when I decided to do the business, I was like, why don't you start creating and we'll put stuff on the site in a little area for you so that you can start learning how to be an artist professionally, learning how to do the back end of a website. So I've sort of been working with her. I need to sit down with her and show her like how to do some of the back end stuff because I think she would do really well. She is very sciencey, like technology minded, which I think a lot of our kids are. Just it's the nature of having technology all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's super cool and fun that we can connect on that level. But she's 15, so like it still feels like a chore, like, because I am business minded and she's just not there yet. So it's like, I'm like, okay, we have this launch coming up and if you want to put stuff, you have to do it. And I'm like, is it done yet?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't want it to be that way either, because I know that that's one of my kids' things with the segueing into working and stuff. It's like when I come home, I'm like, okay, because I homeschool, when I work, they're finishing up their school and doing their chores, and I come home and I'm like, your chores aren't done yet.
Yep. I
Or
think
you
that's
did them
every life.
halfway. And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I was just gonna do it this way. And it's like, okay, that's great, but you don't remember to do it. Then it's like, 12 or like 11 o'clock at night, like last night, I'm like telling the kids, like, don't forget, you got to do your dishes before you go to bed. And like the first thing you do when you come in the door is just tell us all these things that you needed us to do. And it's like, well, maybe because you needed to do them first.
Yep.
But then,
Yep.
but then I feel bad because I'm like, oh, is that how I want someone to come in the door to me?
Right.
So it's so interesting going from those little kid ages to when they're older, for
Yep.
sure.
Oh,
Because
and we're having that issue right now too, because like Ashley and I are running into, we just worked a full day out of the house
yeah,
and we just need like 10 minutes before everybody bombards us. So it's kind of like a balancing act. Like, so I totally get that. Like, yes, we want the kids to be done with their chores, but like we're kind of in this area where the kids do their chores, but like they want a reward right away. Like, I want to play my video games. I want to go play at a friend. And it's like,
yeah.
okay, I just need 10 minutes to like sit and do nothing, like leave me alone.
Like, when is my crafty time? Do I
Right.
get my reward for going to work?
I know. That
Right?
is totally what it's like. Like, oh, I have to be a parent now.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah. Right? I know. It was I will say it's like, and that is for me, my words are not working today. So I'm sorry for everyone. This is gonna be a fun podcast. Um, I know when I was earlier, when I was staying at home in homeschooling, like we would do their stuff. I would do a lot of my computer stuff or like social media stuff while the kids were doing school, because there's a lot of stuff they could just do on their own, where like now they just do everything basically on their own. I just have to make sure they're doing it,
Mhm.
which is sometimes too. But and we've had to like change things up. We're always changing things up. But when they were younger, I felt like I had all this time. And now I'm like, dang, I have less time now that they're older, which is not a bad thing because we're creating more memories too. And that's the thing that I have to remind myself is like, okay, they're only in the house for a few more years and then they're going to be gone. And then I don't see them. Well, and my oldest isn't even here all the time now either because she's with her dad. And so more than with me. And that is like weird. It's weird going from having three kids and like the managing all three of their personalities. And like my son was talking to somebody and he told them that Caden was his mortal enemy. But yet like they're always
Oh,
like, well, I shouldn't say always, but there's a lot of times where they're like doing stuff together and they're doing Pokemon together. And it's like, I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, one of your best friends.
that's so funny. Well, how old is Sam right now? Is he 13?
He's 13. Yeah, he just
Well,
turned
and I
13.
I kind of wonder if it's that age. Like you have to look cool to your friends. Like you're
Hmm.
not best friends with your older sister, right?
That's
Like
true. Yeah, who's 15,
right. So I
Yeah.
kind of wonder if that's because if like I wonder if Ashley's because we have a 13-year-old too, and I would that's what he kind of thinks about his younger siblings, like they're
Yeah.
awful. you know
Yeah.
whereas like they get along on a daily basis, but to everybody else he has to put up this front, kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's totally normal.
It makes for fun scrapbooking because you really get to like narrow down these stories and you really get the personality. I mean, they definitely, when they were little, there was a lot of personality, especially in my house. So I'm sure it was the same in your house, but it's so fun seeing it older. And like, so I look forward to, now that I had a break and coming back, the, resharing and telling how things have changed and seeing that. I think that'll be really fun for them later, because my kids love to look in the albums that I have. Like, they're finally upstairs, because for the longest time I had them downstairs. They were in my scrap room down here, and then I moved them into like the school area, which ended up being my bedroom area. And because when I got married, we transformed the downstairs into like a suite, I guess, like you know,
That's a
a
good way to put
master
it.
suite, if that
Yeah.
you can call it that now. They're not calling it that anymore. But anyway, um, the primary bedroom area.
That's
And this
silly.
is almost like a closet area, except for it has
Right.
my computer in it. We did actually, the funny thing is we did try to move my computer to our main area, because my husband was like, "Well, maybe I'll use the computer to like do Google stuff." Because he was using a smaller iPad, because I took his bigger iPad so I could do Procreate on it.
Hmm.
And and we got it in there, and I didn't think it was gonna work, but I was like, well, we'll move it. It's not hard to move the computer. And it was just it was so funny, because he's like, yeah, I don't like this. He's like, it's too big. Because the
Yeah.
screen covers up the TV. Goodness gracious, it covers up the bottom of the TV.
Can't
That's a
have
big
that.
deal in my that's a big deal in my house.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, let's get to our questions,
Okay.
because we have a few things to keep
Yes.
us on task here. Even though I feel like this part is the fun, this little banter back and forth is the fun part, because we really do talk about the dynamics of, especially within this topic of
Right.
working and having, a big, uh, busy family life. It's like,
Mhm.
especially I'm sure with you guys having so many kids,
Oh, yes.
there's just always something to do that
Oh,
keeps you
yes.
away from your scrap area. And of course, I was so looking forward to, because I get a break this month from work. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh yay, I'll be able to create. I have not been in my scrap room to create like a layout in like a week. I haven't made a layout in a week. I was gonna do stuff yesterday, and then I got stuck doing an order, which, don't get me wrong, super fun, but it just took way longer. And then me and Kaden went out, because we wanted to get a couple of the items that we needed for the watercolor stuff. And so it's like, and then I got in and I'm like, oh, I should take care of the watercolor stuff. I'm like, there's always something else. And it's like, I just also know like this whole list of things that I want to get done this
Mhm.
week for the grand opening. And I'm like, ah. So today I am going to set time aside, because otherwise I'll have nothing to post. And I really
Right.
do want to be able to create. And I'm sure you do too. So,
Oh, yes.
okay, let's see. I'm trying to think the order of the questions that I have, if I want to put them in any specific order.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess let's start. How often do you spend uh creating or scrapbooking?
Well, for me, it's really hard to like actually sit down during the week and scrapbook. So during the week, if I can find time, usually I just try to do like voiceovers or, media, like social media stuff or stuff like that. Because really, after work, I only have like 2 or 3 hours with the
Mm,
kids, and then they go to bed, and then it's Ashley and me have time together, and then we go to bed.
yeah.
So it's kind of hard. And like all of the like the younger kids, they're all getting into sports and stuff. So I take Lorelai, one of our 5-year-old twins, I take her to gymnastics once a week. And then I have my kids who live like 30 minutes away from me. And so if I'm going to see them, that takes up like an hour of travel time. And then, however long I spend with them and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's just during the week is just like so hard to do a layout because I feel like with a layout, like once I get my space like cleaned up, it only takes like half an hour to an hour to create a layout. But during the week, that's like a lot of time. So
Yeah.
during the week, I just try to do like the easier stuff. Like I could do a voiceover in 10 to 20 minutes, something like that. But and then the time that I actually sit down and create is on the weekends, and that's when we have Saturday and Sunday to like kind of do whatever.
Yeah. And see, so like my week is, well, especially when I was working, I should say, which I should say, like, and right now I get a little bit of a break, but I'm actually trying to create it or make my day look like I'm actually working instead of like away, because in my mind, then that keeps me a little bit more on task. If I go,
Mhm.
okay, from this time to this time, I'm doing work stuff. Of course, now, right now, it's bleeding all into my whole week, but only because it's getting everything all set up. I know once it's all running smoothly, it won't be so, I'll be able to manage it better,
Mhm.
which will be nice. But I know during the week, I would always have a hard time getting stuff done too. Like sometimes I could get maybe on a Friday night or a Thursday night, get something done. Um, but like my weekends are, well, so I only work part-time, so you would think that I had more time, but I don't actually. And it doesn't help having like autoimmune issues, and I've dealt a lot with that this past year, which is one of the reasons why I was like, when my husband was like, "Dude, you need," he kind of had to kick me in the butt because he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You just seem not yourself." And honestly, it really was that I needed to ground myself in something else, like crafting. And I'm glad he kicked me in the butt to like really make sure that I did it, because I can tell a difference in just like my attitude and like how I feel about things, but it doesn't help because there's some days where I'm like, "Oh, I did too much." um but so even with just working part-time, that was always difficult because, managing the doing everything. Well, and like with homeschooling, that takes up not a ton of time, but I do have to make sure that my kids are on task, that they have the work that they're doing. And we've had to switch up. Like we tried to do all like digital stuff, and like that wasn't working for everything because they weren't logging in, and I needed a way to be able to see the work on a regular basis. And it's like, oh, so it's like always this like juggling, balancing act. So it's like every week would be different about how much time. And then um my husband works 12-hour shifts. So for part of the week, he's like really not home, or he's sleeping. So it's really like he's not home. So I have, the nice thing is I have those days that I don't have to worry about, like, okay, want to set this aside a time for him or for us. And but then that means that on our weekends, like, which is not on the weekend, which throws me like way off. um so it's like I kind of don't want to do anything except for small crafty things. Like I do have some stuff in my bedroom to do December daily. I have some iris containers and I have them underneath the bed. I can just flip them up, just grab my tape gun and my ATG gun, I should say. Saying gun. YouTube's gonna flag us like crazy.
Oh no.
My my ATG tape roller, and and I can do that while we're watching movies or whatever. But I don't always do that, because sometimes if I'm doing too much, then I'm not paying attention, because my ADHD has gotten so bad. I don't know if it's really, my autoimmune issues or if it
Mhm.
is the fact that my ADHD just got really bad as I wasn't creating. I think that like honestly, creating has been so good for grounding me just in so many different areas that like getting back into it has been really hard because I unlearned habits that I had learned
Right.
before. And so it's crazy, but so like like I can't even say, but one thing that I always tried to do is have when I had a free Saturday is take Saturdays to just spend the day doing creative things. So sometimes it wasn't always like necessarily just making layout, but it was working on some video stuff or because like you said, doing the social media aspect, I could do that during the week. Of course, on my weekends sometimes. So it, it's kind of this really bad juggling act until I get a good routine. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever will because life is always changing and you always gotta like figure in a new ball or whatever. But
Yeah.
we just make it work, right?
Right.
Because I feel like it's super important to be able to, get some kind of time in. And one thing my therapist always mentions to me is like, well, how can you carve in a little bit of time and it doesn't have to be in the capacity that you think it is. So sometimes it's like thinking outside of the box. Like yesterday I spent a lot of time working on watercolor stuff and I had so much fun. I was watching Scrappy videos, so it wasn't like I wasn't doing something crafty. It just wasn't making a layout, which is what I really wanted to do.
Mhm.
Now I can
Well,
understand.
sorry. And I think that that's kind of like we have to get out of that mindset because of the season that we're both in, which is completely different.
Yeah.
I have little kids again, so I need to think. It reminds me of Christy Harriman when she would talk about how she would do things on her desk, like she would leave it out. And then if she had like 10 minutes where, her kids were off eating lunch or something, and she would run over and just kind of move things around and then go back to the kids. Cause
Yeah.
I've never been like that. But that's kind of like,
Oh.
I'm wondering if I could just keep my crafty area clean during
Mhm.
the week, if I just keep everything off of my desk and just keep one project or something on my desk. And then during the week, like if the kids are, watching a movie or something, and I have like 10 minutes where I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I have this idea. I'm just going to run into it and come right back, kind of thing. Like I need to just maybe switch up my mindset and not keep to my old thing, which is you sit down, you do an hour of work, creating, not
Yeah.
work, but like you do an hour of work and you're done, and then you go about your day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I got to figure out how to do that because I'm so used to doing it. I
Yeah,
finish a
start to finish
project.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
I have a hard time when I'm chunking it. I will admit. I told my therapist that. I'm like, I have a really hard time like just doing 10 minutes because she's like, how can you fit in 10 minutes? Just fit in 10 minutes. But and it's easier said than done. It's like, but that's not how my brain works. And so we
Right.
sat down and we're like, okay, she had me go through my day and like she's like, where can you rearrange that time then? Like,
Mm.
and so sometimes it's just like and and she's like, maybe you're doing something other than like that actual. Maybe it's like you're getting your papers all ready or you're getting this ready. Like, so we kind of really problem solve, which is one thing I love about a good therapist is they really help, like they make you do the work and talk through like how can I actually get this accomplished,
Right.
whatever the thing that you're doing,
Mhm.
working on so that you can be proactive and be like actually follow through with it instead of just like sit there talking about and going over and over and circling these issues that you have and go, oh, but I'm not making any changes. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
It really is, like you said, changing that mindset of like, okay, how can I do this differently? And well, and I know Christy used to do it that way, and now she's not really creating that much, unfortunately, and I miss her.
I know, I
Um,
miss her
but
too.
I get it because her kids are they're a little bit younger or younger than my kids, but they're in that stage where they're doing all the things. And when you have multiple kids, there is a lot of activities. It's like I give credit to the women. Oh, there's one lady I'm thinking of, and I can't for the life of me, I can't remember her name. I see your face. But her kids, they just graduated. I think her son just was it her son or her daughter? No, her daughter, I think, just graduated last year. But her son was in swimming and like she was like, and she posts a decent Suzanne, that's who it is. And
Mhm.
like she is just like boom, she gets it done even in the midst of having her kids be in lots of different things and like things that take up a lot of time, like, doing sports and helping support your kids in sports, that takes a lot of your own time. It's like I've seen Mary Garcia, like she doesn't scrapbook anymore, she does other crafty things. And she was actually telling me that she wants to do like art therapy type of YouTubing. And I was like, dude, you need to do that. So
That's
I need to
awesome.
find her because and make sure she's on that.
Yeah, that is
Because
so awesome.
that's the one thing I love about our community is that we hype each other up. We help be our cheerleaders and stuff. And we all need that. We all need that because we don't have the time that we want, right? So we need each other to kind of help keep ourselves um like accountable but also cheerlead and get each other excited. This is the one thing I love about our friendship is that
Mhm.
like when
Yep.
we're all excited, it's like, I'm pinging ideas off of you, you're pinging ideas off of me. And it's like,
Mhm.
and it does make it hard because then it's like, oh, I don't have time this week. Like I know this week you felt so bad about not being able to help me, and I'm like, dude, I understand because I've been in that position where I just
Right.
couldn't give more. I don't have the time to give. Like if you don't have the time, you don't have the time. But even just knowing that I'm talking about crafty things, I'm hoping that it just gets you a little bit more excited so when you get in your space, you're ready.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
Well, and yesterday we were talking about that, like, oh, I don't have time to do this. And then I was able to find time to do it. And it was like so fun. And you kind of like talked me through it and gave me
yeah,
ideas as I was doing it. And I was like, you know what? This is really fun. Cause I was like, I'm not good at this, thing that I was trying to do. And you were like, yes, you are, just like giving me
like
like
this is why I
ideas.
gave it to you because I wanted to give you like the spark of something because I know
Yeah.
that you're not able to do stuff during the week. So my thought was, well, what can you do? Like, oh, you can be on your phone for 5 minutes at a time, and
Right.
find or be on Pinterest and find some cool stuff on Pinterest. It's
Mhm.
like sometimes it's those little things that, help the spark. And then it also feeds your soul. I mean, yes,
Oh,
is
yeah.
it playing with papers and having this completed thing? No, your completed thing is something different. And like it once again, it's that mind shift. So I guess that's our
Mhm.
tip for today is shift your mind and how you think about how you're creating when you have a busy life, when you're working and you're balancing your family and work and crafty stuff because that
It's a
stuff is
lot.
gonna those pictures won't go away if you're taking them. So it's like just being mindful, but also just changing the way that you think about it, I think is helpful. And I know I've
Mhm.
had to do that over the years. It's like because I have more real time and I needed more real time. Honestly, like that was one of the things that I think made me burn out so much. And actually, I don't know if anybody has seen this, so I'm plugging this too. But Victoria Marie posted in her group this week that she is leaving Facebook or social
Yep.
media. And she's
Yep.
just doing YouTube. And I watched her video talking about what her plans are, and it sounds super fun, but I totally relate. And I think so many of us on who share our projects online, excuse me, of we have these times where like we are just going because we're giving so much that we don't fill ourselves up with those little things. And so being intentional and changing how we do things, because it's like we kind of get in this mindset of like, oh, I'm on this road, this is how it works, but realizing sometimes that doesn't work for all these different seasons in our life. And you know, it's like I wasn't having enough in-person relationships and experiences with people, and so that really contributed to my burnout because I was just creating to fill other holes that I had.
Mhm.
And so it's like now, even though I'm not creating, especially this week, trying not to be down on myself because I'm like, you know what? I'm still doing all this other fun stuff and I'm building this other foundation in which I will have more time, I will be more creative, and then I also know that other people will get something out of it too, because it's like as much as I'm doing all this for myself, I also know that there is a need and my need to or want and desire to help other people be
Mhm.
inspired and creative and stuff. So it's like
Right.
that's the downfall of being a social media sharer, I should
Yep.
say, because we don't
Yep.
all do it on YouTube. I know, like Gia, she does everything all she does it only on Instagram. And like now that she's not doing click hits and she's like kind of doing other stuff part-time, it's like I see her being able to create so much more and it's so exciting because the stuff
Mhm.
that she's doing is so like inspiring and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And there's like 10 things I want to do that I've seen her do that I just don't have time. I haven't had time to do it.
Right.
But, so it's like that's yeah. Megan, what things do you do that help you make the most out of your time when you are sitting down to scrapbook or craft?
A lot of times the easiest thing is that I know what I'm working with. So whether I'm using like a scrapbooking store kit or like my For the Love of Homemade Kits kit, or what products am I working with, and then also photos. So usually I take time beforehand to print out photos or look through photos or whatever so that I can just get right to creating. And then also, just depending on the time, if I'm recording for YouTube or, whatever, like I'll shut my door just so that I can just have that quiet time to
Hmm.
myself. But then I've also done it where, like, Lorelai, um, my 5.5-year-old, sometimes she'll kind of sit with me and, hand me stuff or, whatever. So, like, really, it's just like, it kinda depends on the day and, like, what the plans are for the day, but for the most part, the biggest thing is knowing what I'm gonna be using, creating with, and the
Yeah.
photos, having those all ready, and that kinda sets me up.
Hmm.
So
I think for me, the thing that's helped the most is to just set that time aside. Is say,
mhm,
you know what? No, today from this time to this time. Because on even on days where I'm like, oh, I could spend all day scrapbooking, if I don't intentionally set that time in my head, and it's mostly a mental thing, it almost isn't really the fact that I'm like creating a schedule. You better not get into trouble in there. No, she's gonna lay down all the good. Uh but like in my head is go, okay, by 4 o'clock, I'm sitting down at my desk and actually stick to that. So I've created that, like I know, like I did all the other things I needed to do for the afternoon, the day. I got dinner ready so that the kids can just grab their food and stuff. Because like I don't mind figuring out. I do like to know what photos I'm going to use ahead of time. So like
mhm,
having that all edited and my stuff printed out before I get in, because otherwise then I'm upstairs and I got to go downstairs because my printer is downstairs. I probably should move that upstairs at some point
mhm,
because I think I can print from anywhere. depending what I'm printing. Like the computers at least can send it because it just uses the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. I was trying to say two things at one time. Apparently that doesn't help. Uh, but yeah, so for me is really just having it scheduled and sticking to that schedule and not going, okay, I'm going to do this and this. Because days where I've said, oh, I have all day, but I don't actually follow through with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, well, I have all day, so it's okay if I do this, this, and this. So, and I think that's the hardest part for me to follow through with because then it's like, oh, I could just do a post or I could just do this. And yeah, I might be doing something crafty or sort of like fun creatively, like coming up with borders or whatever,
Right.
footers or pictures to use for the ads and stuff. It's like that's fun, but it's not playing with the paper and
Mm-hmm.
getting messy. And I think sometimes also knowing along the lines with what you were saying, knowing what products I want, like mixed media, like, oh, today I'm going to use mixed media. Like just knowing that before I start so that I can get that wet stuff, that messy stuff done first because I know it's like I have to wait. Also, one of the things I've been really bad about and I need to get better about is because I use my phone now to record and I used to just use my iPad, but my new stand, which I absolutely love, so I'll try to make sure I link it below so that people can find it because it's everything I wanted and needed. Um I just have to remember to tighten it because sometimes it gets loose with taking my phone. But it's making sure that my phone is charged enough so that
Yeah.
because sometimes I'll be like, oh shoot. Or I'll have the problem because I like to listen to music when I create so that I'm I've realized like for a while back when I was getting burnt out, I was watching movies and stuff or shows. And don't get me wrong, I love that also, but it takes a little bit longer for me to create because I'm actually watching stuff. But also, yeah, I wasn't as good with doing it all, balancing it all. And I find that I create so much better when I'm listening to music. So so it's making sure that I have my iPad so I can listen to music on my iPad. So I'm not using my phone for two things and really sucking
Right.
all power out. So it's like making sure all those little things are done and I've set those things up ahead of time, which are super easy to do. It takes like 2 seconds to make sure that, I have like what music I want to listen to. I should just get like a CD player or something in my room or like some kind of stereo system that would work in my room in the space because that would be awesome, but maybe
Yeah.
that's down. Um, I'm trying to think what other things, like also making sure that all my photos are edited that I want to use. I think that's a big one because sometimes I'll be like, oh, do I want to use this? And then I'm like running downstairs and having to print it. And then that takes and eats up my time. So having that done ahead of time is super helpful. Don't always do it.
Right.
But I think these are things that sometimes we know and we just have to like make a routine about it. I think if anything, my tip for today is be intentional when you are working or you have a busy like family life, like real life. Not to say scrapbooking is not real life, but you know what I mean? The
Yeah.
other aspects of life, being intentional so that when you get to your space, you can just go, okay, yeah, I have this time, and you can just bloop, just play.
Yeah.
And because it's like where I used to just come in my room at night, like I didn't have that interaction
Mhm.
with everybody. Once the kids went to bed, I would just get in, I'd create, and usually I'd make a layout and then do the video right then and do the voiceover. Like I could do boom boom and get it done in the night, but like I can't do that now. And now I also have to think about like what time do I have to get up in the morning?
Right.
If I'm getting up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, which is some of my days, like I can't be up till 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And I think that's a good point too. Like you have to be intentional with your time that you're going to scrapbook, but you also have to think about everything else going on the
Mm,
rest of the time after you do it. And like that's where, like, for me, if Ash and I are sitting watching a TV show and I'm just like editing photos on a weekday, like that's really helpful because then I'm
yeah,
ready and I can just take that hour on the weekend or whatever when I have time to actually scrapbook and the photo's already done. I've already printed it, like I've
yeah,
done that part already. And so it's helpful that I can just make the layout real quick and then go back to like family time or, whatever else
yeah,
like we have planned for the day. And so that's kind of helpful having everything just ready to go in scrapbook. And
mhm,
then you get it done, you enjoy the however long, and then you
yeah,
can go back to the real life, everyday life.
yeah. It also has been really helpful in the past and even now using kits. Like now that we're
Yeah.
doing for the homemade kits, like it was so nice. I didn't have to worry about going through and looking through a whole bunch of my supplies because that is one thing I need to organize. I was talking to one of the ladies on my channel and we got talking about organizing and I'm like, I hate because like guys, I really hate it. Who's with me here? Who is with me? I don't have time to organize when I could be scrapbooking, especially when I
Right.
have hardly any time. But when I think about it, I'm like when I was looking for my kit, like it took twice as long to get my March kit done because of the fact that I have to look through all of my stuff. And so I used to keep all of my papers in like collections or kits. Well, I don't think that's working anymore. And it makes me mad because that's how I liked it. But and not to say that I can't have stuff organized that way, but I need to be better about it being organized because I have all these bags of partial kits for the Love of Homemade kits that I've made, click kits, collection bags kits, like oh my gosh, and they're all like I have 3 places that they are at. So like when I'm looking for stuff, like I had to go through 2 big 12 by 12 box like basket boxes things that I have in my IKEA shelf full to look for wood grain because I don't have all my wood grain together.
Oh,
Apparently that's
wow.
how I and it makes me mad because I don't like who likes change? No one likes change. But then realizing that sometimes things in life change and then you just have to roll with it. And I say that. And I'm such an easygoing person. So I don't know who this new person is, but I need to embrace her because she
Yes, you do.
is losing her crap here. I'm telling you, I was so mad and I was telling Kaden because she is super not clean and because she's 50. And who else has a messy 15? But and her stuff, she has her room, but then she had her craft desk in it was like we use that whole space. Well, she moved her desk into her room, but she left all her stuff. And like I'm telling you, but I told her, I was like, we have all these rolly containers, like drawer systems. They're just the plastic ones, the cheaper ones. But I'm like, dude, I'm like, I need to go through these. I'm like, is there one that you want? Because I have one that I'm eyeing that's a rainbow colored one. And I used to have my scrapbooky stuff in there. And when I switched to the nicer stuff, I gave it to the kids. But I told her, I was like, I'm gonna take this over because I think I'm gonna use it for the different things. So I have ideas, but I was talking to the lady and I was like, maybe I should just record myself doing this. And then I have
Yeah.
content like, yes, you should totally do a series. And I'm like, okay, well, now I said it out loud
Now you have to
because I
do
know
it.
we talked about doing more of a series. And I videotaped myself saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to go through my embellishments. I did not go through my embellishments, they're still sitting in there. But I did find a whole bunch of cool stuff when I was doing my kit that was Pink Fresh Studio, and I'm like, dang, I just need to have like certain things all together that like embellishment. I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but because I don't have enough storage, I don't think. And
Yeah.
I say that knowing I have a ton of storage. So even like those things of like keeping your space organized is really, I said all this to say that keeping your space organized is really helpful because when you go in, you can easily find your stuff. You can easily,
Yeah.
if you use it by kits, like having the kits has been really nice. I just go and I just grab it. And so like, boom, it's made for like while working, super easy because
Hmm.
I'm not looking for 10
Right.
different things. Don't get me wrong. I love using lots of different supplies and I don't like to just stick to a kit because it is nice to be able to just use whatever. That's the hard part about being on a kit club as much as I love being on a kit club. Because you get new stuff every month. Is that you're stuck with that kit because you need to create certain amount of layouts with that kit before you can start dismantling it.
Right.
But if you don't have it organized, don't have stuff ready,
Yeah.
and you're
That's the
limited
hard
on
part.
time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that we've kind of not we definitely haven't exhausted this whole conversation, but for today
For
we're gonna finish.
now.
Um,
Yeah.
is there any is there any tips that you want to give or anything else that you want to add before we close out?
Um, well, I think like what you've been saying, like being intentional is really great, but also like just thinking outside the box when your life changes. Like don't be hard on yourself when it doesn't
Mm,
look like what it once did, and how can you fit in time based on the new, parts of your life, and how can it be fun for you? Because I think also like when we're scrapping and we're YouTubers and on social media, we forget like this is supposed to be fun and a hobby, and you know so it's like, well, and now that you and I are kind of doing it as a business, like also that aspect kind of makes it harder to make it like it's still fun, but it's like a business as well. And so
yeah,
it's like trying to keep your eye on or figure out how to keep it fun.
yeah,
And it's not always about the business. It's not always about, like doing
mm,
YouTube. And like if you create for like 10 minutes a day and don't post on YouTube or social media, like that's good. Like that
yeah,
helps your brain, like that helps regulate yourself, and then maybe later on down when you have more time, then you can create for YouTube or whatever. So like
yeah,
think outside the box. How can you fit in your craft, your hobby, and make it fun all the time and not only thinking about social media or YouTube?
yeah,
So,
yeah. I think that I know that that's hard. Like you can get so touch such tunnel vision, and I think some stepping outside of everything and like
mhm,
just evaluating is like super helpful. I definitely think my big tip is, is that is to think of it in the mental health way,
mhm,
and like how is this giving and filling your cup and making sure that it's filling your cup. So really it's just me. I'm mirroring what you're saying, just in
yeah,
different words. Is
yep,
make sure it's filling your cup because if it's not, then you need to adjust and
exactly. Yep.
and don't be hard like you were saying, don't be hard on yourself because there the photos are always going to be there. The craft stuff is
Mhm.
I tell you, there's stuff in my stash, mixed media stuff, and we all know how the mixed media stuff doesn't last. That I'm surprised lasted the few years that I haven't used it.
Yeah.
And oh, I'm like, yay, I don't have to get all mixed media stuff because that stuff is expensive.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
expensive even when you buy it wholesale to put in a
Yep.
store. But well, and so just the caveat last bit, I was talking to the rep for AC in my area, and we got talking about how cool it is that we can, um, have a business and work in the industry and the hobby that we love, and but remembering that just because we're posting and it is maybe whether or not you're making money off of it, whether or not you're doing it for design teams, is to think of it as I'm doing this for myself.
Mhm.
Because it's like when you make it all about the business, you're gonna burn out. Like I can tell you,
Exactly.
I've had it happen. I see so many people in our industry that that's how it is. And then it's just like we have to just leave. Like it's almost like we don't even have the bandwidth to say, "Hey guys, I need time." Like
Mhm.
and I don't know how much I need. So it's like that balance also of real life stuff. So making sure you're filling your cup in other ways, not just in the scrap room, because that is gonna make your scrap space and your craft space and that time much more meaningful as if those other areas in your life you've also are addressing those. So don't leave those parts. And I know it's really, really hard, especially for a lot of us who use it as like a way to like heal and because it is so healing. But it's like if you're not dealing with the other parts of your life, I'm telling you, there's going to be this disconnect. And at some point, it's it's really hard to do that. So take
Yeah.
care of your mental health
Yep.
and, in all areas of your life.
Right.
Take
Yep.
care of and organize the rest of your life so that when you get in your space, it's so much more meaningful. And that's the wrap for today.
Yeah.
That's so thank you guys for joining us. I want you to give any tips or things that you guys do to help um, your busy time, so that when you are in your scrap room and craft room, you are creating the stuff that you love. And so give us your tips
Yeah.
below. Make sure you're liking and subscribing. And if you hit the bell notification, then you will get notified when we have our podcast when it goes live or any other videos because we share stuff for the love of homemade kits on here. And hopefully eventually we can start doing other stuff. But for right now, that's just what we're doing because it's just the two of us. And
Yep.
we are busy and trying to build a crafty inspiration station again. And
Oh, yes.
so
Well, and if you guys also want to share, like, how do you create or like when do you find time? Like, do you find time during the week or do you work a full-time job? Like, we'd love to hear all of that too.
yep. Yep. So we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Crafty Scrappy Chats. I can't talk. Scrappy Chats with Hannah, with Crafty Meggy and Hannah. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Crafty Mavens. Welcome to the Crafty Maven Getaway podcast with Crafty Meggy and Hannah. I'll redo it.
Okay.
I even have it written down, and this is what happens because I don't actually look at it.
Yep, right.
It's okay. We have good bloopers now.
Yep.
The bloopers were funny because it's last time because I talked about the pen. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, welcome to the Crafty Maven Getaway podcast. Oh, it helps if I say I'm your host, Hannah. I was waiting for you to say that. Okay. We got this. I got this.
Got this.
Okay.